General Hospital. Spoilers hint that Willow Tate, Caitlin McMullen, and Isaiah Gannon saw Andy Wilson could have some cabin passion in their future. Will this runaway bride find comfort in Isaiah's arms? And maybe even in his bed? There have been multiple discussions lately about Isaiah's money pit cabin, which was a gift from Lucky Spencer, Jonathan Jackson. Isaiah is looking forward to turning it into the perfect getaway destination, but there's still plenty of work to be done. In fact, Isaiah mentioned that he'd have to miss Willow and Drew Kane's, Cameron Matheson, wedding because he's got meetings with contractors. Rescheduling would push the work back, so Isaiah said he was going to head to the cabin after his shift instead of sticking around for the nuptials. There must be a reason why Isaiah's cabin has been brought up so many times, especially now that the marriage ceremony is almost here. Willow knows all about Isaiah's cabin since he talked about the expensive renovations he was doing there. Of course, GH fans know Isaiah and Willow have formed a strong bond as pals in recent months. We could certainly picture Willow and Isaiah stepping out of the friend zone depending on where the storyline goes next. Since Willow's world is about to come crashing down at her wedding, we should consider what she might do in the aftermath. After Willow presumably finds out Drew and Nina Reeves, Cynthia Watrose, have been hiding their former hookups all this time, she may unleash her fury and ultimately dash right out of the church. This could turn into a runaway bride situation, so where will Willow go if that's the case? Could Willow find herself at Isaiah's cabin and seek refuge with him there? It just seems significant that Isaiah is bailing on the wedding to head to his cabin right before Willow's going to need an escape. If Willow and Isaiah do end up spending time at the cabin together, could some passion break out between them? Isaiah might be wary of taking advantage of Willow when she's vulnerable, but she could ask him to help her forget her pain for a while. Willow might insist Isaiah is a genuinely good guy, unlike the fraud she fell for when she chose Drew. It's easy to see why Willow would be drawn to Isaiah in her time of need. Isaiah might get swept in the moment and kiss or even hit the sheets with Willow, so stay tuned for updates on any sizzling news ahead. General Hospital spoilers indicate that the marriage of Curtis Ashford, Donnell Turner, and Dr. Portia Robinson, Brooke Kerr, is in serious trouble. During their latest disagreement, Curtis and Portia came to blows and ultimately, they both were at a standstill regarding their marriage. Portia ended up meeting up with Dr. Isaiah Gannon, saw Andy Wilson, at the Brown Dog and was confiding in him. Isaiah thinks that Curtis's expectations are way too high, and that Portia deserves better. There has been drinking involved and inhibitions are going to be lowered, and Portia and Isaiah may end up in bed together. Portia Robinson and Isaiah Gannon continue to drink together at the Brown Dog. Portia could continue to wallow in self-pity and drink herself to intoxication with Isaiah, who is also close to being drunk. They would continue to talk and bond and things could get flirty between the two of them, and at first Portia would pull away. Isaiah would tell her that Curtis doesn't deserve her, and that he would treat her the way that she deserves. This would sway Portia and she would tell him that they need to get out of there, and she would demand that he take her back to his place. Portia Robinson and Isaiah Gannon fall into bed together. Portia's rage at Curtis has taken over, and the fact that Isaiah has given her the attention she craves, she and Isaiah arrive at his place and start to have passionate sex. Isaiah wants Portia more than ever in his current state, and the two have a wild and steamy night together. The morning after a night of regret, Portia would wake up in bed with Isaiah, and now sober, immediately regret their night of passion together. She would realize that she betrayed Curtis, and that she still loves him, and that she never meant to be unfaithful. Now that she has committed adultery, she realizes that she has damaged her marriage with Curtis even further. Isaiah would wake up and realize that Portia regrets her decision to have sex with him. Although he enjoyed it and could see a future with his boss, he ultimately decides that it was the wrong move on his part, and he would agree that it never should have happened. Curtis Ashford is concerned that Portia Robinson did not come home. Curtis would wonder where Portia has been, and he could start to regret his words to her, and want to talk to her. He could ask Trina Robinson, Tabiana Ali, if she has heard from her mother, but Trina would tell him that she has not. Curtis could run into Anna Devane, Finola Hughes, and she would tell him that she saw Portia at the Brown Dog with Isaiah, and Curtis would quickly deduce that Portia went home with Isaiah. Curtis Ashford confronts Portia Robinson. Portia finally would arrive home to get ready for work, and Curtis arrives soon after seeing Anna. Curtis would see that Portia is looking disheveled, and that she is hungover. He would ask her where she spent the night. Although Portia would try to cover, Curtis would confront her about lying to him, and tell her that she knows that she was with Isaiah. Portia would try to explain, but ultimately would be forced to admit to Curtis that she and Isaiah slept together. Curtis would be livid, and tell Portia that this is the last straw, and that their marriage is officially over. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think that Portia will cheat on Curtis with Isaiah? Will Portia and Curtis's marriage fall apart? Will Portia confess the truth to Curtis, or will she continue to keep secrets? Keep watching General Hospital weekdays on ABC to find out what's next. Willow hadn't planned on any of this, certainly not abandoning a wedding, and definitely not ending up in a secluded cabin miles from Port Charles. But there she was, drenched from a sudden rainstorm, her heels discarded by the fire, staring at Isaiah with eyes wide from adrenaline and confusion. Just hours earlier, she had stood at the altar, heart pounding not with excitement but with dread. Something inside her had screamed run, and before she knew what she was doing, her feet had taken over, her body moving faster than her thoughts could process. She didn't stop until she was breathless on the edge of a gravel road. And then Isaiah had shown up, like fate was nudging her toward something she didn't yet understand. Isaiah hadn't asked questions. He just looked at her and saw the panic in her eyes, the water-soaked dress clinging to her skin, the wedding band she was supposed to wear still in her trembling fingers. Without a word, he led her into the woods, away from the chaos of her life and into the serenity of a place untouched by time. His family's cabin. It wasn't much, just a wood-framed structure with a fireplace and worn furniture. But it was quiet. It was hidden. And it was just what she needed. Inside, the silence between them grew heavy. The fire crackled, clothes hung drying by the hearth, and Willow sat wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of pine and Isaiah's cologne. He moved around the small space, lighting candles as the last of the daylight slipped away, casting soft shadows that danced across the walls. Every now and then he glanced at her, cautious, uncertain but attentive. He hadn't pressured her to talk, hadn't demanded explanations. His calm presence was grounding, and for the first time in days, maybe weeks, Willow could breathe. She didn't know why she'd come to him. Maybe it was because Isaiah had always seemed to see her differently. He wasn't wrapped up in the legacy of Port Charles or burdened by the Corinthos name or the Coeur d'Alene tension. He had always been steady, quietly strong, someone who understood the value of silence and stillness. She'd always felt safe around him, even if she never admitted it aloud. The storm outside raged on, but inside time slowed. Willow finally began to speak, her voice soft and hesitant, like the cracking of dry leaves underfoot. She told him about the wedding, about how every step down the aisle had felt like she was walking toward someone else's life. She told him how Michael had changed, how his anger had hardened, his forgiveness always conditional. She spoke of the weight she carried, of being expected to smile through the pain, to nod and comply for the sake of peace. Isaiah listened, his face unreadable but his eyes deeply engaged. When she finally paused, her voice breaking, he didn't try to fix it. He simply sat beside her, shoulder to shoulder, letting her know she wasn't alone. And when she leaned into him, it wasn't calculated. It was instinctive, a gravity that pulled her toward warmth and safety. The firelight flickered across their skin, and suddenly, the space between them felt charged. Willow was no longer the bride who had run. She was just a woman who wanted to feel again. Something real, something unscripted. Isaiah looked at her as though he'd never stopped, his gaze lingering on the soft curve of her cheek, the tremble in her bottom lip, the pulse at her throat. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered, even as her fingers brushed against his. "I know," he murmured. "But I'm glad you are." Their kiss was hesitant at first, born from shared pain and emotional confusion, but it deepened quickly, ignited by all the feelings they'd never voiced. Willow let herself be swept away, no longer weighed down by obligation. In Isaiah's arms, she didn't feel like someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's responsibility. She felt desired, cherished, even if just for the night. By the time dawn crept through the frost-covered windows, the world outside had gone still again. Willow lay curled against Isaiah, her heart no longer racing with anxiety, but beating with a tentative calm. She didn't know what came next. If she would return to Port Charles, if she would face Michael, or if she would try to rebuild the pieces of a life she had so carelessly upended. But in that moment none of it mattered. Isaiah didn't push her for answers. He brewed coffee while she dressed in clothes that were far too big for her. His clothes, and made her laugh with a quiet story about fishing in the lake outside. The normalcy was disarming. A gentle reminder that life didn't always have to be defined by drama and loss. And yet, the moment they stepped outside into the crisp morning air, reality began to press back in. Willow's phone had dozens of missed calls. Messages from Michael, Carly, even Nina. Her heart sank, the weight of consequence looming over her again. But Isaiah touched her shoulder, grounding her, reminding her with a glance that she didn't have to decide everything right away. Willow stared at the road ahead, uncertain. She didn't regret what had happened in the cabin, not for a second, but she knew the fallout would be brutal. The town would talk. Michael would be furious. And Sonny, if he were still alive, would likely never forgive her for abandoning the image of family he had fought so hard to preserve. Still, a part of her had come alive in those woods, reawakened by passion, by freedom, by something unpredictable and human. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop living a life curated by expectations. Isaiah walked beside her as she stepped toward her car, ready to drive back into the storm she'd left behind. But now she carried something with her, something she hadn't had in a long time. Clarity. And in the days ahead, when questions came from every direction and judgment rained down, she would remember the firelight, the silence, and the man who had held her as if she mattered, just as she was. Whatever came next, she would face it not as the runaway bride, but as the woman who had finally found the courage to choose her own path. Curtis had been trying for months to hold things together. After the paralysis, after the emotional distance, after the broken promises and awkward silences that filled the house, he told himself that Portia deserved grace. He told himself that the pain she was carrying, the guilt, the pressure, the worry about Trina, had become too much for her to manage alone. But even as he clung to understanding, part of him kept wondering, who was Portia becoming? Was this still the same woman he married? Isaiah had always been around, first as a friend of the family, then as an occasional confidant when things between Curtis and Portia got tense. Curtis never saw him as a threat. That made it worse. Because when he came home that night and found the house dark and quiet, the couch pillows slightly rearranged, and a jacket that didn't belong to him hung over the chair, his gut told him something had shifted. He didn't confront Portia right away. That wasn't his way. Instead, he waited until the next morning, watching her move around the kitchen, looking for signs that would either reassure or confirm his growing suspicions. She was careful, too careful. Her smile was rehearsed, her words measured, and there was a lingering scent on her sweater Curtis couldn't identify. It didn't take long for the truth to surface. He overheard it in part, just enough pieces of a phone call between Portia and Elizabeth to piece together the truth. A mistake, Portia had called it. I was drunk, she said. It meant nothing. But the damage had already been done. Isaiah had spent the night. They had been drinking. Things escalated. Curtis sat on the edge of the bed, numb. A man like him who had fought so hard to regain his sense of identity after the shooting, after the trauma, after the breakdown of so many parts of his life, felt that the one thing he counted on, his marriage, had been quietly slipping through his fingers. And now it was gone. Portia didn't deny it when he confronted her. She cried, begged for understanding, told him that it wasn't planned, that it was one night of weakness. But Curtis saw through it. It wasn't about just one night. It was about all the nights leading up to it, the emotional disconnection, the lies by omission, the growing closeness between her and Isaiah that had gone unspoken for too long. For a while, Curtis thought he could live with anger. He thought he could sit in the silence, keep the house running, continue physical therapy, and rebuild his life with his wife by his side, even if things were fractured. But betrayal of this kind didn't come with a reset button. He couldn't erase the image in his mind of Portia in someone else's arms. More than anything, he felt foolish. Foolish for believing that their bond could survive the weight of their history. Foolish for thinking he could lean on love alone when so much had changed between them. Foolish for not seeing it coming. What made it worse was Isaiah's reaction. The man didn't avoid Curtis. He didn't apologize. He acted as though the boundaries didn't matter, as though his closeness to Portia was justified because she had been vulnerable, and he had been there for her. Curtis didn't explode. He didn't throw punches or break furniture. Instead he went quiet. Dead quiet. He distanced himself not just emotionally but physically. Days passed with only minimal words exchanged between him and Portia. Nights were spent in separate rooms. Their once shared morning routines disappeared. Portia tried to fix it. She suggested counseling. She asked if he could forgive her. But Curtis knew what forgiveness would cost him. A piece of his self-respect. And after everything he'd lost, the use of his legs, the steady rhythm of his life, the certainty of love, he wasn't willing to lose that too. Trina noticed the change immediately. Though she didn't say anything at first, Curtis knew she was watching. Her presence at the house became less frequent, and the calls more strained. Portia tried to shield her daughter from the truth, but Curtis wouldn't lie. Not anymore. He finally told Trina one night when she stopped by unexpectedly. She asked him straight out if something happened between her mom and Isaiah. Curtis didn't need to answer in detail. His silence spoke volumes. Trina's disappointment turned inward first, toward her mother, but then slowly turned toward the entire situation. She left the house that night in tears. Curtis couldn't protect her from the fallout. He could barely protect himself. At one point Stella came by, sensing something was off. She always did. She asked if he was sure, if he wanted to throw away his marriage over one mistake. But Curtis knew it wasn't about that. It wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about clarity. He had spent too long holding space for other people's pain, trying to carry it for them while setting aside his own. Now it was time to do something different. To choose himself, even if it meant walking away from a life he once fought so hard to build. That night, he wheeled himself into the living room and told Portia he wanted a separation. She broke down. She begged. She told him she still loved him. "I believe you," he said. "But love's not enough. Not anymore." He left the next day, moved into the Metro Court for a while, booked a physical therapy session at a new facility across town. And for the first time in months he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. There were no more lies hanging in the air. No more pretending. No more trying to force a broken puzzle back together. Isaiah faded into the background after that. Portia reportedly cut ties with him, claiming she'd made a mistake and wanted to focus on repairing her relationship with Trina. But Curtis didn't look back. He knew the damage had been done. Maybe one day he could sit across from Portia and feel something like warmth again. Maybe they could find a way to coexist as co-parents, or even as friends. But not now. Now, Curtis needed something more than forgiveness or closure. He needed freedom. General Hospital recaps for Monday, July 21st show Carly Spencer and Jack Brennan catching up, while Jocelyn Jacks is warned. Dante Falconeri and Anna Devane discuss Jocelyn. Brooklyn Quartermain receives a gift, and Jason Morgan experiences nostalgia. Carly and Jack catch up at the Metro Court pool. Jack surprises Carly by informing her that he has reserved the venue exclusively for the two of them. She's curious about the surprise. He jokingly suggests that it is a secret, but then admits that he has simply been missing her. Carly felt the same way. He notes that he's making progress on a difficult topic at work, and she informs him of her granddaughter's indefinite departure from town. Both she and Michael Corinthos are devastated by it. Carly tells him about all of the bizarre incidents regarding Daisy Gilmore. Carly and Jack discuss the future. Carly explains that she was hesitant to confide in Jack for fear of entangling him again with Sonny Corinthos. He has already done so much for her, and she does not want him to feel taken advantage of. Carly desires his presence in her life, not just to address her problems. He wishes for her to contact him whenever she encounters difficulties. They talk about his loneliness, which stems from his efforts to avoid a personal life. He admits that being close to her gives him comfort, and they exchange kisses. Vaughn issues a strong warning to Joss. Joss and Vaughn arrive at work to find their supervisor absent. She speculates that Brennan's relationship with her mother must be against the rules. He responds by telling her to keep her personal life separate from work. Vaughn warns her that looking into Jack's affairs could land her a desk job. He underlines that Jack is extraordinary and has saved his life on multiple occasions. If she wants to have a good career, she should avoid making an enemy of Jack. She assures him that she will not do anything to jeopardize the mission, and he expresses concern about her becoming distracted. Just then, he receives a call informing him that the courier has just boarded a connecting flight to Dubrovnik. Dante gives Anna food for thought. Discussing Jocelyn in Anna's office, Dante is surprised when Anna tells that she believes Jack has recruited Joss into the WSB. This is difficult for him to accept, but she is confident that Joss has already received training and sees her as his little sister. Anna believes Joss is the type of lady Jack is looking for. She believes the WSB sent her in to observe Professor Henry Dalton. Cyrus Renault must have enticed her in. She reminds him of Joss's pursuit of Cyrus, which Jack most definitely saw. Anna wonders if Jack helped Joss in her pursuit of Cyrus, supplying her with leads that no other citizen would have. Anna discusses Jack exploiting Jocelyn's grief. It appears that Jack used Joss's grief for Dexheller, and her desire for justice to turn her into an agent. She muses on her own road to becoming an agent, and Dante is concerned that his sister is oblivious of the perils she is facing. Anna is convinced that Joss craved a purpose, which Jack provided for her. They believe she was trained on her purported trip to Easter Island. She mentions that Joss has already undermined Emma in order to get closer to Dalton, suspecting him of something far more serious than illegal animal testing. They talk on the personal expenses of being in the WSB. Anna suspects Jack has been using Carly to get to Jocelyn. Dante believes Carly would prefer to be kept in the loop. On the other hand, Anna believes they do not have enough information to proceed with any measures. Dalton must pose a serious threat, and they should hold off on taking action. Dante is concerned that Jack may be willing to endanger an agent in order to get rid of Dalton. He wonders if she would have wanted someone to save her from the WSB when she was the same age as Joss. Brooklyn and Lucy are at Home and Heart in the Home and Heart studio. Lucy tells Flora Gardens how pleased they are to be there with her. She believes she will be an outstanding host. She discusses Brooklyn Quartermain's anxiety, and she admits she is only mildly frightened about appearing on television. Flora is confident she will perform as well as her mother. BLQ clarifies that Lucy had to resign as spokesperson. Flora assures her that they can keep Lucy focused. Lucy informs BLQ that she has a method to keep the audience involved, attempting to provide a motivational message, but BLQ can't help thinking about how much the spectators adored her mother. She longs for their former selves. The program begins and Flora introduces the two women from Deception, who show their new serum. Brooklyn gets a surprise. Lucy begins expressing her wish for Lois Cerullo's presence before unexpectedly calling her up on stage, which surprises BLQ. As the mother and daughter are urged to embrace, Lois tells BLQ that she was told this would happen. BLQ tells Lois she can't decide whether to hug or fire her, and Lucy drags Flora away so they can leave the two to present. They awkwardly mention how much they resemble sisters before continuing with the pitch. Backstage, Lucy shows Flora the ratings. Lois and BLQ are a success. Brooklyn fires her mother, and they return to the others as the event concludes. Flora hopes that after the broadcast, they will return shortly. BLQ quickly confronts Lucy, who says that she did this for the brand and them. Can't they put their problems aside and go on? Lois apologizes and tells her daughter she is proud of her. BLQ is outraged and informs Lucy that if she does something like this again, she would show her what she learnt from Tracy, before firing Lois and storming out. Jason is nostalgic in the airport in Paris. After dropping off Sasha Corbin and Daisy with Robert Scorpio, Jason boarded a commercial flight home. He was taken aback and surprised to see a woman who looked exactly like Britt Westbourne board an airplane. Jason asks the security to allow him on the plane so he can chat to a passenger, but they refuse. He recalls the woman who resembled Britt and feels nostalgic as he boards his flight. Memories of Britt and her battle with Huntington's disease flood back. He also recalls their separation when he married Carly. Meanwhile, Britt emerges from a car in Dubrovnik, Croatia, expressing her joy to be back. Make sure to keep up on everything going on with GH right now. Come back often for General Hospital spoilers, news and updates. General Hospital spoilers for Tuesday, July 22, 2025 are now available. Fans can look forward to an announcement from Jen Sidwell on tomorrow's program. Laura Collins receives alarming information. Also, Isaiah Gannon tries to encourage Portia Robinson. Continue reading to learn about what's coming up on ABC's soap show. Make sure to check out our weekly GH spoilers right here. Willow Tate's nerves will start with Willow Tate, who is getting married to Drew Kane. Despite everyone's warnings and pleas, Willow decides to marry the congressman. Willow appeared to be doing this just because Drew and Martin Gray stated it was the best way to reclaim possession. Willow has lately gaslight Sasha Gilmore Corbin over baby Daisy Corbin Corinthos. Then she smirked while Nina Reeves and Liesl Orbrecht discussed it. In a preview, Willow nervously informs Elizabeth, Liz Baldwin, that her wedding is tomorrow. Sonny Corinthos pays a visit after Laura Collins' disturbing information with the mayor.